What comes next? His insane in-game theory for PoE 2. As we know, 0.4, the next update, which will be in December, most likely the end of December, if they keep the sort of the same time constraints that they have normally, is about the in-game. It's a full in-game rework, and we know the Druid's coming because of the interview they did with Destiny. They said, yes, the Druid would be there unless there's a delay for some reason of the Druid. So let's see what his in-game theory in terms of the insane in-game is the title. So let's see how
back, you filthy exiles. And yeah, I am a little bit bored today. So anyway,
Classic.
This is what happens when I'm on holidays. It's not good. I'm stuck with my thoughts. Anyway, so
I like that he's on holiday and he's sitting at home in the same spot. This is exactly what I do on my holidays because every day's a holiday.
I was thinking like, okay, so
What's up, King?
I didn't want to do a video talking about mechanics because like there's plenty of those, right?
Yeah.
And whether you like melee or not, I'm a melee player with Warrior. I think melee...
Also, spoiler alert, we're talking about mechanics in my next video that'll be on the TV channel because a whole bunch of people, himself included, are sending in videos talking about what their predictions are for the upcoming league mechanic. And obviously there's going to be a league mechanic, right? This is the first league we actually have a real league mechanic. So that's going to be the next one you're going to see on the TV channel. Kind of a collab.
And a number of other things that just like, we just got to wait at this stage for the next big patch. And then I got thinking, what about the end game? What comes next in Path of Exile 2? And then I was like, well, I got time today. So on my trek down to the local shop, I was thinking and writing notes on my phone, as I usually do when I'm thinking about videos. And I went, what happens with the pinnacle system in Path of Exile 2?
For the pinnacle system, I expect at least one new pinnacle boss, most likely associated around whatever league mechanic is coming as well, and potentially one new Uber variant of the pinnacle boss. The reason I say Uber like this is because the Uber Arbiter is really just Arbiter with more HP, right? Like I was kind of hoping that the Uber Arbiter would actually have like different mechanics or something, but as far as I'm aware, it's just Arbiter with more HP, right?
Where does it go? What should we expect? Like where's it at now? And anyway, so I fired up Photoshop and I've come up with some ideas. And for anyone at GGG who watches, feel free to steal away because I think this would be really cool. And so let's do a video on
Classic
it.
Photoshop PoE video incoming.
And so let's get into it and see what my crazy mind has come up with. But yeah, let's unpack the future of Path of Exile 2 and my speculations around what could be next.
Okay.
And by the way, if you're not subbed to the channel, consider doing it. And
I'm already
if you want
subbed.
to become a member, by all means, it supports the channel and my very bad caffeine addiction. But anyway, let's get into the video.
True, I'm drinking a Red Bull right
Okay,
now.
so as the salary man that I am, I did an org chart. And we're going to talk about this, but let's start with the very bottom of the chart being level 3. And there are 3 levels to this organizational chart. These are the supervisors or the low tier managers. Think of it like that. But basically, these are the bosses that are both currently, or the pinnacles that are currently in the game and that I expect will come into the game, right? So basically, the first of all, talking about Breach. So obviously we have Zesht, right? And we have 3 tiers to Zesht. Now, it's a really interesting...
I think Zesht is the best designed boss in the game. And I mean, it has the coolest arena, although the Arbiter of Ash arena is really cool. It has a cool arena. Its moves make sense, and there's counterplay to them. It has kind of a phase 1, phase 2 thematically, voice acting wise, design of it. I think Zesht is probably the best fight in the game. It's a little bit of a bummer because these fights get invalidated by there's a shitload of DPS in the game right now, so everyone just gets one shot. But in terms of if they actually played out in time wise, the way that they probably thought it would from a time period of how long it takes to kill one of these, I think Zesht is the most balanced, cool fight in the game.
Thing. I was watching DM's one of DM's videos earlier this morning, and yeah, he is right about we talk about Uber Zesht and whatever. I actually don't think these should have Ubers. Like we just call them pinnacles, right?
Yeah.
So tier 1 to 3 pinnacles. I don't think that these should have Uber versions. Like the tier 3 is fine at this stage, maybe a tier 4, right? And the reason for that is because I think the bigger picture here with Path of Exile 2 is probably very similar to like Path of Exile 1, where like the Ubers should be like the absolute upper echelon of bosses,
Yeah, they
right?
really
Like
should be.
Uber
Yeah.
Arbiter of Ash is ridiculous, right? And it should encompass like a number of new mechanics to the fight.
Yeah,
So it
there we
should make
go.
you
Okay.
actually engage in the fight at that
Yes.
higher level, as opposed to one tapping bosses. And I'm
Yeah,
not
because like okay, there's one thing about there's two parts of Uber bosses you should have to accomplish. One is which is getting your build to the portion where you can withstand the damage as well as dealing the damage. That's like section one of what you should have to do. Obviously, like getting to the fight itself is its own struggle in terms of fragments, etc. But like that's piece one, and then piece two should be working around the new mechanics that the Uber bosses have. Like Uber Exarch in PoE one's a good example of this because like you have to deal with the Minotaurs that show up as well, right? Like there's extra things you have to think about that at least make you panic a little bit more. So I kind of really like that about PoE one. Or Shaper's got his own mechanics, you know what I mean? You get the clone, you get the balls are spreading around and stuff. So like there's additional things you have to deal with from a mechanical side. So you have your build side, and then you have like a mechanical / skill, whatever you want to call it, side. I like having both of
going
those.
to talk about one tapping bosses. My stance on it is you shouldn't be able to one tap bosses, right? Not at least conventionally. I think like if you're running like low tier ones, things like that, they should be one tappable. But when you get to tier 3, that should take like 45 seconds, and that's what Jonathan basically wants those bosses to be at, and I 100% agree with that, depending on the power of your gear. And as builds change, then specialization to characters that can take down.
I will add on that I'm okay with the bosses we have now being absolutely crushed with the Giga geared out builds that are currently in the game. I'm fine with that, and you don't even need Giga Gear to shit on a boss. I'm okay with the bosses getting deleted if we're getting more bosses above it. If these are this is the highest tier of it, then yeah, obviously there's some rebalancing maybe that needs to happen with the bosses. I'm not so much concerned about the bosses dying now, unless this is like, that's it. Like these are I'm sure we're going to get more higher up. What I really want is to have more pinnacle in-game related, Uber chase bosses that are a struggle at the higher end, which is fine. Cause I literally think that's just a time thing. They just haven't had time to develop it yet. That's all it is. It's not like there's a philosophy problem. It's not like they don't know how to do it. They're literally haven't had the time to make it yet. That's all it is.
Bosses quicker should be a thing, and that's how it works in PoE 1. And I think that is a really good position for PoE 2 to consider specialization. I'll do a video on that if people want to see me talk about specialization with builds, because I think build specialization is what Path of Exile 2 is moving in the direction of now with all the changes in 0.3.1. But yeah, anyway, not going too far into that. Let's talk about this. So Breach. We have Zesh. We know we get T3, and all these bosses should have 3 tiers to each, right? I think the other 3 Breach Lords that will come in, and in Path of Exile 1, they're referred to as the Breach Lords. And I haven't looked at Zesh in enough details to determine whether he's called a Breach Lord or just like a boss. So obviously Zoth. And we have like gear in Path of Exile 2 in the lore and things like that about Zoth, but I don't think it should be Zoth, but something very similar, or that's something that sits above Zoth, like a.
So we actually do know there are other Breach bosses coming. We know this because I believe it was in the Talkative interview. Maybe it was in one of the ones I forget which one it is. There's so many interviews at this point. It might have even been one of the ones I did, where they talked about how there was mid-tier related bosses from Breach in particular that they were planning to have that are not quite in the game yet. So Zesh is supposed to be like a higher tier boss, and the other bosses, like the ones he's up there, they're supposed to be like intermediary bosses for sort of the mid game, which is also, to be honest, something else we're missing. Like we're kind of missing some lower tier, more easily accessible bosses. Maybe that's sort of what their 0.3 rework around the splinters were supposed to be, sort of fill that gap for time period, and then they'll go above it. And 50 splinters are easy enough to get, so that might just be their solution. It's been 0.2. It felt that
boss. Way. And then Tool is Frost, I'm pretty sure. And Esh, I can't even remember what element Esh was, but Esh was another Breach Lord in Path of Exile 1. And basically there should be an iteration of those bosses, I feel like, and then you would have tier 1 to 3, and this would be different types of Breach splinters that would drop. This is similar to PoE 1, right? This is like as Breach is further fleshed out. My understanding from interviews from the GGG devs is that like this is the intention long
Yeah,
term,
yeah.
but
He's
they
getting
just
into it
like
here.
they
Yeah.
needed something to ship out the door. This is one of the interviews even earlier this year with Jonathan, and so Zesht was it, right? But I think
Bingo.
some redesign for the other elements of it, and I think like 4 is good enough at this stage for Breach, and then maybe adding in like an actual like Breach, like I don't know, like mega boss at the end might be pretty cool. So you'd have these 4 that then roll up into something bigger. That's a bit of foreshadowing. Anyway, so then we've got Expedition, we've got Orloth, right? Orloth. It's Orloth. Spelled Orloth.
Orloth.
Anyway, so that's the pinnacle for Expedition, right? You have 3 tiers to that as well. So bam, right? Abyss, Vessel of Kulamak, arguably the weakest of all the pinnacles, right? But it is referred to in the wiki as a pinnacle.
Yeah, Kulamak is he's pretty easy. To be fair, King of the Mist I feel like is pretty easy too. I feel like Oroth is actually he's for a little bit scarier than me. Zesh is like supposed to be like the stronger one, but I feel like these two are kind of on the same ish level to me. Yeah, these guys are. This guy here is kind of a joke. Obviously, these guys are the only thing about scary about these dudes is they show up in Simulacrum, and Simulacrum is actually the scary part. Not so much the mobs themselves. And then King of the Mist is like kind of just a joke.
It's got good drops, very specific drops. You get the
Orloth's got the best drops
from it, things like that. Fine, that's Abyss, right? Ritual, King of the Mist, obviously. We have tier 1 to 3 King of the Mist. And then Delirium, we have Kosis and Omniphobia. Obviously, tier 1 to 3 versions of those as well. They're determined to be pinnacles based on how PoE 2 is set up, even though, I don't know, they're not conventional pinnacles, but they are pinnacles nonetheless. That's how they're referred to. Anyway, now we go to level 2.
Yeah, I never really considered them pinnacles.
When we start the real speculation. Okay, so the Arbiters, level 2 pinnacles, right? These are the big kahunas.
Oh no, he went
Arbiter. The biggest. We haven't gotten to that yet.
Arbiter of Frost.
So basically,
Arbiter
we have
of
Arbiter of Ash, right? We have Uber Arbiter of Ash, which is the hardest boss in the game right now, most expensive to run and hardest in the game right now. But that got me thinking: what comes after Arbiter? Is Arbiter the top, or is Arbiter something more? Now, looking at like the lore here a little bit, like, and I'm not a lore buff, right? But anyway, so basically, like when you're fighting Arbiter, there's this thing called the Flame Seed that comes up, or the Seed of Flame, whatever. Anyone who's run it 1,000 times.
Yeah, the Arbiter of Ash is a weird one because there is kind of no, like, it doesn't really have a connection to anything. And what was interesting is I actually asked them about designing the Arbiter of Ash, and the conversation was basically that Mark asked them just make something really badass. That was that. I know there's some lore missing here, but the Arbiter of Ash was literally created because he's like, just make something really fucking cool. Like the biggest stipulation is it has to be epic, it has to be like big, epic, and a badass fight. That was sort of like just make something, and so that's how the Arbiter of Ash came to be. So in terms of like, we don't really hear about anything with the lore. I don't really know how it connects together. My understanding is it kind of doesn't. So maybe it's going to get written as well. I don't. Maybe he's just talking about the arena design, and that the Arbiter of Ash actually has lore implications that I don't understand. But yeah, sometimes you make something cool and fit in the lore layer. Yeah, basically, it could be one of those.
You know, that's the thing. Pretty much, that's an interesting concept, and for some reason, I built the path in my brain that it could be something like Avatar, like The Last Airbender, right? And so I came up with the concept of 4 different arbiters in the end game, right? That you have to break down. And I'll talk about how I think the system should work to be able to access these and whatnot later in the video. So we'll pull up the actual map and we'll talk about the Citadel of Flame and all the rest of it. But or the Citadel of Ash, whatever it's called. I should know the name of it now. I look at it every day. But anyway, so that got me thinking, okay, so maybe like there are 4 seeds, right, that build the, you know, the whole. Okay, so 4 hemispheres of the arbiters, or 4 quadrants of the arbiters, or 4 elements of the arbiters should exist in that basis.
Okay.
And so then I came up with the Arbiter of Frost, which could be really cool. And then you would have an Uber version of the Arbiter of Frost, Then obviously the
In which we
Arbiter of
just get
Earth.
frozen the whole time.
You see where I'm going with this in my thinking. Which would all be about like stone and rock based sort of stuff, similar to like the boss at
And then you have the Arbiter of the Avatar, and he's got a giant blue arrow on his forehead, and he uses all of the different elements.
the end of
Right,
like
guys?
was it Act 4 now. When you go before you go in to get the fourth edict element, the spear, complete the spear. Basically like that boss, and it's all like stone based attacks and all that sort of stuff, and you got to bash through the walls to get to him and all the rest of it. And then for the final arbiter would be the Arbiter of Chaos, and that would be like, you know, the Big Mac Daddy of arbiters, right, as far as chaos goes. And because arbiter, so then you would have flame, frost, earth, and chaos, right? And you would be able to access these from 4 different citadels and 4 different locations, all using the same sort of keys to get into the citadels. But then you would then be able to collect a drop from each citadel, right? But where would that drop take you? And I went, well, okay, so what comes above all of these? And this is where we go to level 1, right? And we talk about the Big Mac Daddy of all
The
the
Big Mac Daddy, all right.
bosses in the end game. So I don't know where I got the idea from this, but I was just...
I'm sorry, I have to laugh. Like, the Big Mac Daddy is just some old homeless looking dude in a hood. I don't know why I was expecting, like, yeah, AKA the Shaper. Yeah, I mean, give him a blue party hat and some goggles and call him the wise old man, my dude.
sort of walking and thinking about it. Then we get to like level 1, and
Oh,
the
shit.
Omniscient Overseer. And I feel like that sort of fits. Even like I modeled this one in ChatGPT because I thought it'd be pretty cool. And it sort of came out with, you know, pretty much
Shaper
something very
looking at.
similar to like the Shaper in Path of Exile 1. And I went, damn, that's actually really cool. And so the Big Mac Daddy Lord that sits above all the pinnacle bosses, the big pinnacles in the end game,
Is Mr.
it
John
would be
Exile.
like the Omniscient Overseer. And my idea for this would be where you would have 4 citadels for each of the different elements, right? And this would be biome based, or something that would be, you know, in essence of biomes that would affect the way that the Atlas map works. And then I was thinking like, well, wouldn't it make sense where like if it's storyline based, right? So like they want that endgame map system to really stand out. So once you defeat all 4 of the citadels, right? Then basically the temple where you start is actually housing the Omniscient Overseer, and the whole time you don't know it, but you're standing on top of the biggest boss in the game.
Ah, that's kind
And
of
that's
cool.
where
I do
you
like that idea.
access the
Spoiler
that's where
alert.
you need to go to access this boss, right? It basically changes your Atlas map, totally changes. It lifts the temple up in the center and reveals the bottom layer of the temple, which is the biggest layer. And that is where the Omniscient Overseer is based. Right in the center of your map, at the very start, is also where the very end commences as well. And
The
I was
cycle of
like,
life and
that's
death
actually a
repeats
really
itself.
cool concept. So you would, like, in short summary, you would defeat each of the Arbiters. Each of the Arbiters would drop you a key fragment, being like the Flame Seed, the Ice Seed, the Dust Seed, and the Miasma Seed. I was like,
And this is going to cost 15 mirrors to run because you have to do 3 citadels for each of the different arbiters. That's 9 fragments, and then you get the 3 fragments from each of those to attempt the boss, and which probably only has 1 portal, and you get 1 shot anyway. Can't fucking wait.
Arbiter Chaos, Miasma, right? Anyone who's watched anime would come up with that conclusion as well. And then to access the Omniscient Overseer, you would need all 4 seeds to then access the Omniscient Overseer, and that would totally change the map. Like, and that would then break, like, you know, the Atlas map, or like do some sort of reset mechanic or something like that, but also reveal access to the Omniscient Overseer, which would be the hardest boss in the game. Like, no one-shots, you're not going to be able to one-shot this boss ever. Like, even at the base level, it's going to be like an Uber Arbiter of Ash at the most base level, right? And then the Uber version of this is going to be like only the best 1% of players can defeat that Uber. It is the hardest in the game. Like, you basically need to be a god tier player to be able to do that. Anyway, that's my idea of like Path of Exile 2 and where it could go. And I don't know where I came up with this. I was just like thinking about it as I was walking. And then I was like, I'll punch this in ChatGPT, see what comes out of it. And sort of, I didn't really get the names of this from ChatGPT, just thought of it as I was walking. And then obviously, you know, imaging this and whatnot. So then basically, this is our total chart, right? So we zoom out. We have,
Dude, if we get this many additional bosses in 0.4, that's going to be a hell of an update. Look, we're going to be lucky if we get these ones. If we get these 3 breach bosses and that's it, we'd be lucky to get 3 new pinnacles. If we get 2 new full tier systems with Uber variants, good lord, this comes copium.
All of our small pinnacles that roll up into our tier 2 or level 2 pinnacles, these are our directors of the organization. And then the CEO at the very top is the omniscient overseer. This is the way that I'm looking at it because my head's just stuck in this governance space right now around this sort of stuff. But anyway, I thought this would be a really fun video to do, to just speculate where GGG could go with this. And by all means, GGG, if you get ideas from this, go crazy. Like, I actually think this would be a fantastic way to span the end game out. And then basically, like, we find out by 1.0 that, like, we haven't, or these could be league mechanics after 1.0. So the omniscient overseer doesn't come in until like 1.5 or something like that. Or like 2.0 or 1.10, whatever. They got 1,000 patches of Path of Exile. But anyway, I thought this would be a lot of fun. And I've had a lot of fun making this. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. Because, yeah, I wouldn't mind making more videos like this where we're just having a bit of fun speculating what could come of the game.
That would be a hell of an
Obviously,
update,
I'm very
dude.
excited for Path of Exile 2. And
I hope he's right. That would be a massive,
I'll put
massive
it in the
update.
description below so you can sort of send it around and be like, hey, this is really cool. But yeah, anyway, if you like this video, don't forget to like and sub. And I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good one, all.
Now, we definitely need more Pinnacle content. I honestly, I would love to have more Pinnacle bosses, and that would be fantastic. But more so than that, we still just need like normal maps to kind of be in a good state, to be honest with you. I mean, this is great content for people that sit around all day like myself and play the game. But the reality is people get bored in maps as it is. So we need maps to be more entertaining. We need both. We need both, honestly. But if I had to pick one, you know, get the map system to be a little bit more fleshed out, have it not be so annoying to actually juice stuff up, and have people be like satisfied with the mapping experience before we get too many bosses. But it's getting better. Obviously, the tower rework was part of that being gone. God, could you imagine? Like, just looking at this, could you imagine you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with Uber variants? Yeah, I X'd it out that we get that much content, but if we get it, yeah, that'd be a pretty good 0.4, not gonna lie.